What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Here we are live with the West Virginia Iowa State post-game show here on the Voice of College Football channel. I'm Jordan Cruz, member of the Country Roads webcast team here on YouTube, joined by a good friend of ours here, Mountaineer Paul. You can find him on YouTube as well, Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. How's it going, Paul?
Rough day, man.
Yeah,
Very disappointed.
yeah, to say the least. As you see there, the score scrolling across the bottom of the screen. If you're a Mountaineer fan, I'm sure you know it. You probably endured most of that as much as you could handle. I know I'm just a glutton for pain. I guess I'm always going to watch every second, no matter how bad we're getting beat. But 31-14, the final. Iowa State comes out on top of the Mountaineers, gives Iowa State their first conference win of the season, and drops Mountaineers into last place officially in the Big 12 conference as they fall to 3-6 overall, now 1-5 in Big 12 play. And it was just a terrible game offensively. I think for what was the second straight week really kind of bled what the way the TCU game ended offensively kind of bled into how they performed this game offensively. I believe. I mean, it looked like that performance of those late drives against TCU carried over to the basically entire game in this one. I mean, West Virginia really struggled. Didn't even have 100 yards passing until the final drive of the game when Garrett Green was in for mop-up duty. What do you think you saw from this Mountaineer offense today, Paul? I mean, it was pretty abysmal performance.
It's the worst performance of the Neil Brown era. Uh, give credit to Iowa State's defense. They have an elite defense. If they had any type of offense to go with that defense, they'd probably be the best team in the league. Their defense is really good. So don't they had something to do with what happened today. It's not all us, but we're better than that. You know, uh,
Absolutely.
if Hugh Freeze is coaching this team, I promise that doesn't happen. Whoever, throw somebody in there, Jamie Chadwell. If he's coaching this team, that's probably not the outcome. We truly just got unlucky. We got a coach that was hot, that was coming off of 3 seasons. He coached at a school that typically has a good football team. John Summerall's there doing work right now. Troy's always been for the last 20 years a school that wins 8, 9, 10 games. Neil Brown got hot while he was there for 3 seasons. We got snake bit by it. That's just all there is to it. We
Yep.
picked up a coach that was hot, and he was a flash in the pan. He's above his head at the Power 5 level. I don't know if it's an X's and O's thing. I don't know if it's an evaluation of talent. I don't know which. It's all. Maybe it's all of it. It's keeping your friends on, and
Mm-hmm.
staff members, and letting people like Jamila Digo uh, and others. I just went off on a tangent, but
No,
yeah, I'm
no,
not
I'm
happy
with
with
you.
the offensive performance. It's I've released 2 videos on JT Daniels here in the last 13 days. One of those I got drug through the mud a little bit on, and I don't want to say I told you so or anything like that, but go back and watch that video 13 days ago. I don't know. It's just my opinion. I didn't like what I saw 2 weeks ago from JT Daniels or before then. And I made a video day before yesterday about him. He's averaged a 67 as far as Pro Football Focus goes. That's his average for the season. It's going to drop, obviously. And you think about that number, it's a backup. That's what Pro Football Focus's backup is rated. Anything under
Right.
69 is a backup. So that's how he's played. He's playing like a backup. And anytime he faces a defense that has any salt about it at all, he struggles. So
Yep, I agree 100%. I'm right there with you now. I think that you should deserve the credit for getting to say like I told you so, because I think, in my opinion, you saw the writing on the wall before. A lot of people. I think this game was the game where, just judging by social media, Twitter, West Virginia Twitter during the game and stuff, people were starting to see JT Daniels was a little off and missing some things and was pointing that out. But I think you kind of had the foresight to see that ahead of times a couple weeks ago. And like you said, the video you talked about, the PFF, was really an eye opener for me heading into this game. Me and you messaged back and forth a lot during the games and during the week and stuff. And we were talking about that early in the game. And I think throughout the game, that really showed. I mean, a lot of the time those throws were there and JT Daniels was just missing them, specifically in the first half is what I'm referencing. But I agree with you at this point. I think, you mentioned being snake bit by Neil Brown. I think we were by JT Daniels a little bit too. Whether you think he should be benched or not is a whole nother argument, but I don't think you can argue that he's not the quarterback we all thought he would be. You know, people were talking about comparing him to Will Greer. And I think now, is he better than Daggy? Yes, more talented, but that's like I told you when we were messaging. He's definitely, you know, more talented than Daggy arm wise, has better intangibles, you know, mindset wise for a quarterback. But watching the offense as a whole, the product on the field doesn't really look that much different than it has the past 3 seasons.
No, no, great take. Um, and that's the weird thing about it is Daggy has had more production out of this offense, even though it's different. You know, I think Brad Smith from the Voice of Morgantown was tweeting there during the game. He said he probably laid money down that he doesn't think that Neil Brown. He thinks Neil Brown's calling these plays or his fingerprints are all over it. He doesn't know how much of the reins Graham Harrell actually has. It's a question we probably won't get an answer to. You know, I don't think Neil Brown would admit to that publicly. You know, if he were, you know, in those meeting rooms and dictating one thing or another over another. You know, Neil Brown's kind of, you know, at a hand, maybe has a handicap to call these plays. Don't want to make excuses for Graham Harrell if that's not the case either. But I didn't think really, you know, I thought it was a good hire, but just looking at those two personalities, they're just such different dudes. Neil Brown's a micromanager. He's somebody that obviously has trouble letting go, whether that be benching players, getting rid of friends, relinquishing play calling duties. You know, and the athletic director had to tell him to do that. So to think that would actually happen, you know, he's a lot like I was in my younger days. I had to bang my head against the wall before I realized it's time to change and not act that way anymore. And sometimes I have to be presented with no options before I choose the right option. And I think that's where he's at. He's obviously in a spot now to where maybe he'll realize. You hope to God he'll realize, like, okay, I just need to let Graham do his thing. If he's not letting him do it, obviously a lot of that's conjecture and we don't know. Maybe it's just we Mountaineer fans are in denial and we just hope that that's what's happening. You know, because my favorite acronym for denial is "Don't even know I'm lying." Maybe I don't know I'm lying. You know, maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
No, but I agree with you. I even mentioned as much, you know, last week because specifically I know last week we ran a play where Sam James kind of hid behind like our offensive line to take a end around handoff, and I know for a fact I'd seen us run that play in the prior, you know, Neil Brown years, and I've never seen Graham Harrell run that play. So I do think there's something to Neil Brown having a hand in this offseason. And my opinion on it was kind of that I feel like they gave Graham Harrell full autonomy as far as he's the one calling the plays on Saturdays. But I definitely think like the development of the offense and the scheme itself that they're going to use leading in the season, Neil Brown had a big hand in that.
Correct. That's what I mean. Yeah, he's at a handicap as far as maybe the set of plays he's picking from isn't exactly what he would be picking from if it was up to him. You know, they've come to this agreement on these plays, but are there really, if it was up to him, all the plays that he would pick? Who knows? You know,
I feel like if it was up to Graham Harrell, we would see a lot more up tempo than we've seen. This offense
absolutely.
has no urgency.
I think they saw the writing on the wall about the defense and thought, and probably
That's
come
true.
to an agreement that says, okay, so up tempo is probably not going to be good for this defense. We need to be a ball control type offense. The problem with that is to be an up to be a ball control type offense, you have to be able to execute over and over and over and over and over again. You know, you can't make mistakes from play to play. You can't have false starts on short yardage plays or goal line plays. You know, you can't have receivers running in the same area. Whatever kind of execution deal you have, when you run a ball control type offense, you have to be able to execute over and over and over again.
Yep.
And that's just not who we have. We don't have those kind of dudes right now. I think the 23 class, we're getting some, but, you know, can't keep a coach for the recruiting class. I think that's been well established by many players and coaches throughout the years. I don't know. In this transfer portal era, at the end of the day, whoever we bring in is going to have the ability, whether they do it or not, to change things and change them quick. It just all depends on who it is that we bring in, if we bring anybody in.
Yeah, I think that's the question right now, right? Because everyone was kind of wondering, if Neil Brown would be able to save his job, and a lot of people were looking at this Iowa State game as potentially the most winnable game of the Final Four if you're going to get a few wins. And the Mountaineers needed to win 3 of their Final Four to get to bowl eligibility. They lost this one, so they would have to win out to reach bowl eligibility. I think when you lose to a team that has 0 conference wins, and not only lose, but you lose by 17 points, and as someone here in the chat pointed out, let me see if I can find it again. It was another embarrassing performance on the road that West Virginia put up, and that's kind of been the story of the Neil Brown era and of this team this season as well, is just playing terrible on the road. Here at Dr. Piv, brutal game again, no show on the road again. Absolutely agree. It also goes on to say, do not see how Brown survives. Great points there, Dr. Pierre. Appreciate you chiming in, and want to take a second to remind you guys, drop any questions, comments you have there in the chat. We'll go through and address some of those as we go throughout. And the best way, if you want to guarantee we talk about your comment, is the super chat option. That's the little $ down there by the comment section. That will guarantee we pull up your comment if you would like to contribute that way. And that really helps here, the Voice of College Football channel, as we're trying to grow the West Virginia channel. And another way to help that is hit the like button for us and subscribe if you haven't already. But that being said, Mountaineer Paul, I got to ask you, I mean, is there any way Neil Brown survives after this loss? And do you think that it's even potentially a chance that he could not make it through these final 3 games? We could hear an announcement soon. Do you think it's even that dire right now?
Well, yes, yes, fire Neil Brown, but do I think there's a chance he makes it through these last few games? Yeah, I do, because he and Shane Lyons are in lockstep with one another.
That's
In a lot
true.
of ways, Shane Lyons is in bed with Neil Brown, and so when you look at it from that angle, who knows what the hell's going to happen? I think Neil Brown has dug his feet in. It's like when you make a decision in life and everybody criticizes it, you want to wait as long as you possibly can to come off of that, right? And I mean, that's just usually the male ego. I don't claim to
Right.
know Shane Lyons, but even after this week, he thinks to himself, so if Neil Brown gets this team that just lost to Iowa State to a bowl game, which is still technically possible, then I'll have all the rope I need to hang myself, or however you want to put it next year, because that's what would happen. I don't think any of us are convinced that this
Yep.
23 class is going to save Neil Brown. There is something about him and us that just don't mix. And I said it over time. I've said it a week ago. I said it 2 weeks ago. I've never seen a guy come in and change a culture like he did, be as likable as he is, have recruits talk about him like he is the next coming, the second coming. Parents talk about him like he's the second coming. You got kids going to Cincinnati. Their parents are putting out apologies on Twitter because of Neil Brown.
Yep.
I've
It's
never seen
weird.
somebody be like that and not have any production on the field. It just makes no sense. It makes me want to tear my hair out. It's like I've been set up, like golly, man. It's so frustrating. And
No,
so I
I'm
just
right there with you.
I hope a decision is made by Monday. There was a dude last I checked that was beating Arkansas today. Man, I wasn't all the way on the Hugh Freeze bandwagon, and I don't know if he's even in our plans. I don't know. But man, he went on the road today and was beating a really good Arkansas team 21-5 last I looked, and that's pretty
Yep.
good.
Yep, and he's done a great job there. A program that traditionally you haven't seen win like that, and they've been getting wins against FBS opponents. I mean, Power Five opponents even now this season, and winning handedly. So he's definitely done some impressive things there. But I agree with you. It's the weirdest thing about Neil Brown, and that's what just doesn't make no sense and makes this whole era feel so weird. Is the hire was praised by everyone. We all had a good feeling about it. He's such a detail oriented person, supposedly, and go and like you said, micromanages and everything that he's done off the field. Like you said, recruiting's been great. The fifth quarter program for the players. You could go on and on listing things, but the disconnect, like I said, can't put your finger on it, but there's some kind of disconnect within the program that's not leading to wins on the field, and that's ultimately all that matters. And it's just so weird and strange to try and point your finger on what it could be, because I honestly don't know. And like I said, I like the guy personally as a person and wanted to see him win here, but it's just not happening. So I agree with you. I don't know if I want to say it's imminent quite yet, because I think, like you said, him and Shane Lyons are in lockstep, and potentially who knows what could happen. But if it was up to me, I would definitely, probably go ahead and go, pull the Band-Aid off, for lack of a better term, by Monday, like you said. David Cummins here says, was embarrassing. We need to move on immediately. Lyons needs to go too. And I think that's a good point to bring up, because, like you said, Lyons and Neil Brown are in lockstep. And I think Lyons is now to the point where he's going to have to put his foot in the sand one way or the other, because either he's going to ride with Neil Brown and try and give him one more year and hope he wins. And if Neil Brown doesn't win, then Shane Lyons probably knows he's fired too. Or he's got to say, I messed up, I was wrong, made the wrong hire, fires Neil Brown. Shane Lyons is kind of at the point of no return now. Either he's going to ride with Neil Brown and it's probably going to cost him his job, or he's going to have to make that move and say he was wrong.
Right. And he don't even have to come out and say it publicly. All you got to do is fire him.
Yeah. I was
You
about to
know,
say fire
that'll
him.
tell us all
Does
we
it.
need to
Yeah.
know. That'll tell us all we need to know. It's a shame. You know, I feel so bad for Dante Stills and guys like that. Dante played such a good ball game today. As many times as our offense got the ball, we should never to put that kind of display out there. Um, I still can't believe JT Daniels threw for under 100 yards on the day. Then Garrett Green comes in and goes 4 for 5, throws for 50 yards and a touchdown, or whatever it was. Uh, I just wonder what would have happened if that had been sooner. You
Yep.
know, um, at this point, I've always in my back of my mind wanted it to be Nico, but I don't care who it is. If it's Garrett Green, let it be Garrett Green. But
Yeah.
I'm done with the JT Daniels experiment. It's almost like Neil Brown feels like it, he brought us coordinator in, so they're in a way also in lockstep with one another. And that with JT Daniels, it's almost like you bring bring in the Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. They're not playing like the Seattle Russell Wilson played. JT Daniels isn't playing like the USC JT Daniels or the Mater Day JT Daniels or even the 7-0 Georgia JT Daniels when he had guys like Jermaine Burton to throw the ball to now. I'm not saying he
Right.
doesn't. We don't have that here. So do they make a change? It's anybody's guess, man. Don't know if our problems are fixable. I don't know if the guys are on the
Yeah.
roster. That's the thing. And one way or the other, that's still a Neil Brown problem, and a
It is.
Jordan Leslie problem. I seen his wife posted a tweet today with their son saying that they had just spoken to him, and that she had that hashtag. Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it today. I missed that one.
Yeah, Jordan Leslie's wife had a hashtag handle hard better thing today, talking about we
Oh,
fans. And we had at least that I could see 10 fans that were pandering to her. And it took everything I had not to retweet that with something negative attached to it. But
I
I
understand.
decided not to. There was a baby involved. But yeah, I'm
I
not,
don't know.
I'm not
That's
to
one
kiss me.
thing. Well, that's one thing I haven't liked. Like, when everything has been going wrong, it seems like that they want to, like, come back at the fans for being upset that we're losing.
Yeah.
From Neil Brown saying, earlier after the Baylor win, or after Virginia Tech win, whichever one it was, that their downfall was exaggerated or whatever he said, to them saying, don't take criticism from anyone you wouldn't take advice to, and that being a main theme of them. I don't know. It's
Those are
it's
all
it's
shots at
interesting.
us.
Yeah, that's the way it feels, and in a season when you're losing already, you don't want to make that even
Lose
worse.
the fan base.
I don't know. Right,
Yeah.
and not try and relate to us, and so I don't know, maybe they see the writing on the wall too, it's hard to say, but there's a comment here from Nick Danger I wanted to address. He says, "When are you all gonna realize we don't have the recruiting to hang in the Big 12? Since joining the Big 12, we have gone lower and lower in performance." And I want to bring this up because Nick Danger, that's a good point, but I gotta disagree with you, because that's what my issue is, like, right now with WVU is people are saying, we have crazy expectations. The Pat White era spoiled us, things like that. And to me, I think it's not unrealistic that we've been in the conference for, over a decade now. We should at least, be in the top two or compete for a conference title once in that decade. That's not unrealistic. So to Nick Danger, to your point, I'm not asking for a ton. I'm not just asking for better than we've been this first decade of the Big 12 and particularly these last 4 seasons.
Nick Danger, you go look at the recruiting rankings right now. We are one spot outside the top 25, which would be the best in program history. So um, I'm not, and Neil Brown has consistently out recruited Dana Holgerson since he's been here.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know, so it's just, I don't think it's as much that, Nick, as there's a development issue, a developmental issue. You see a guy like C.J. Donaldson that explodes onto the scene, but then can't be developed to taper back the way he plays to not be injured. Things like that. Like, I feel like that's a coaching issue that he was injured because they, they were feeding him the ball. I mean, obviously we were injured and he had to be given the ball, but I feel like some of the things he was doing with the ball in his hands were just reckless. Just little small things like that. Obviously the receivers we've had the same two receivers now since the Dana. I'm sorry, I'm excited. Since the Dana Holgerson era, Bryce Ford Wheaton and Sam James have both been in this program. Thank you guys for sticking with us for that long. But you've had the same problem since 2019, maybe even 2018. So, there's no reason our program is stagnated. And then you look at JT Daniels and the possibility of him coming back another year, and even the more stagnation. Whoever comes, he's a clean house, man.
I agree. I think it's just, time for a change all around. My dog back barking in the background. I think my fiance might just pulled up back home. So if y'all hear that, apologize. He'll stop it momentarily. But having said that, I think we got to talk about the defense a little bit in this one. They've been kind of the downside all season, and I think they got worn down a little bit in the second half. But the issue that I had with the defense in this one was not really effort based or anything like that. I thought they played good enough in the first half. Like I said, I think they got worn down late, but my problem with the defense is the same issue I've had with it all season, and that's poor tackling and costly penalties, specifically poor tackling. I thought really hurt us today.
And not being able to get off the field, yeah. It's almost like it's like last week. I think Texas Tech, if they didn't set a record for fourth downs, or not Texas Tech, I apologize, TCU, if they didn't set a record for fourth downs, I'm shocked. I think they were 10 for 10 at one point on fourth down. Was that what the number was?
Yeah, it was up there. It was close to 10 for 10. I know it was
so, it's not a surprise that coming into Iowa State. Now, the talent drop off between Iowa State and TCU is pretty big, as far as offensively goes. But still, you can give up 10 for 10. It's not a surprise that you're giving up sustained drives to anybody. But I really thought coming into today, we had two early stops. And if you'd have told me that before the game, if I'd told me we had two early stops, I'd say, oh, we got them. We probably scored, at least 10 off of them. 10 points against that squad to me was going to be a pretty good start. But none of it's worrying, none of it's anything that I thought would happen this year hasn't happened. Literally nothing. Like, if you'd asked me to predict before the season anything, I would have been so off and so wrong looking through those golden blue colored glasses. But even things I would, try to answer logically and unbiased, I don't think would have been right.
Nope, I'm right there with you. I predicted, I think 8 wins prior to the season on our season prediction roundtable show, as did I think we had 4 people on there. I think 3 of us had 8 wins, 1 of us had 9 wins, and a lot of predictions were anywhere from 6 to 8, 9 in that range. Nobody was really predicting 3 wins, very few and far between, anyways. If you did, shout out to you for doing that, for calling it. But
shout out to the Big 12 media.
Yeah,
we're getting it
that's
right.
true. They did have us 8th. They had us 8th when we maybe even worse than that. So I mean, definitely, yeah. Shout out to them for seeing the writing on the wall, because we sure didn't. That's for sure. Blue Hawk 71 with an interesting comment that I think we could talk a little bit about, because I have seen this going around from some people that think this. because, how his performance has been lately. And I don't want to say that he's not because, like I said, pure speculation. I don't know one way or the other. But in my opinion, the one thing I will say about that is if JT Daniels is hurt, then why would you still be playing him if you're Graham
Yeah.
Harrell or whoever?
Blue Hawk, you and I've had a few exchanges on here before. I respect what you have to say, man. But at the end of the day, this is a results driven business or world. And whether he's hurt or not, if you're going to step onto the field, you have to perform, whether you're hurt or not. It's either you come on the field and you play as if, or you step off the field and let somebody else get on there that will. Evidenced by Garrett Green going 4 for 5 in a touchdown. I don't know if I know it was in mop up duty, but I don't know that JT could have done that at any point today, even in mop up duty. So if he is hurt, that's on him for either not saying anything or it's on the coaches for covering it up, because even college coaches are required to put those out there, that players are dinged up if they indeed are. So
I'd agree. WV Mountain Lair with Kenny. What's going on, Kenny? Good to see you, man. He says no development period. And I think that's an
what's up,
interesting
Kenny?
talking point as well, because we can think about it. I mean, because I've tried to think about this a couple times, and outside of maybe, I guess you could say Zach Frazier, of course, maybe this Dante Stills, Jordan Jefferson. Those are the kind of the ones that come to my mind. But outside of that, can you think of many players that when they came into West Virginia have improved under Neil Brown's tenure? That if you saw them as a freshman or sophomore and they've gotten,
Not outside the
better to
lines
the
of
naked
scrimmage.
eye. Yeah, I think the lines they've done a good job of developing, but I think skill positions, the second level of the defense, I can't really think of too many. I mean, even think specifically like a guy like Sam James that was his redshirt freshman season was by far his best season. Neil Brown's very
Yeah,
first season in 2019.
exactly. And what happened to him? Um, Obviously, you would think if there was development that would have only gotten better. What did he catch that year? Like 69 balls for almost 1,000 yards, or did he go over 1,000?
No, I
I
think he
can't
ended up with
remember.
like 8 or 900. I think if I
Yeah,
remember right.
800 something, uh, which is a good season in college. Uh, Really frustrating, man. But yeah, outside the lines of scrimmage, my Alexa's going off. Give me 1 second.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Go ahead, man. Let's see what we got in here. Go to chat here. Appreciate you guys tuning in and chiming in, of course, here live on the Voice of College Football channel, and we are on the West Virginia channel at the Voice of College Football. We're still trying to grow that, so if you're in here, two things you can do to help us really grow that is like the video. That'll help with the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Plenty of West Virginia football content coming out on the West Virginia channel here at the Voice of College Football, and we are here after the West Virginia games all season with these post-game shows. But appreciate you guys, and you're always more than welcome to chime in with your questions or your comments as we go through. Let's see here. Rich Francis asks, with our recent commit yesterday, do you guys think kids are committed to WVU or Neil Brown? Can't see how they would commit given the current state of the program. Well, I mean, I think that kind of obviously getting that 4-star Traylon Ray kind of goes against that and shows that they are still willing to. And, I know I watched you and Coos, cover the commitment Mountaineer Paul, and I thought that was an interesting thing you guys brought up is, does this show that maybe the coaching staff is being given reassurances to help them land guys like
Right.
this? And I got to hope that that's not the case with, what we saw on the field today, but I think it's also, you can't rule out the fact that the coach can tell a recruit anything that they want to hear as well.
The Traylon Ray situation is unique to me, because I think the selling point to him would be, this is if I was a coach, do you want to go to Tennessee, and they're really deep at the skill position spot. Mississippi State is too, really deep actually. Both of those schools are, and both have a ton of 4-star and in Tennessee's case 5-star players lining up to go there. So I think that just the path of least resistance in a similar offense is West Virginia compared to those two. That could be an answer to why he came to West Virginia. But I spoke to one of the most recognizable recruits um, of the 23 class yesterday and today. And I asked him that question. I didn't ask him about Neil Brown at all. I consulted with Coos and with another guy, Travis Kenobi from Last Word on College Football, and we decided it wouldn't be a good idea for me to ask them about Neil Brown or anything like that. But I did just ask him, how did he feel about the losses and things like that? Has it been tough for them to stick around? Um, and then thanked him for sticking around, you know. And I think it's a mixed bag of players that are committed to Neil Brown. This specific person has come out on Twitter and said the exact. I mean, he even made a post about it. I committed because of the coaching staff. He said
Right.
that. So I think there are players that are, you know. And then so I have another source. I won't because he's, I haven't asked him. He has a source, and apparently what he was told was that Neil Brown is one way to these kids in the recruiting process, and then when they get in the building, another way. And that's
Hmm.
why the exodus has been what it's been of players coming and going. So, not really sure. This is all hearsay too. Don't take it as
Right.
gospel. But I mean, I know for sure that these things were said to him. But
Yes.
still, I'm not there. I don't see how Neil Brown is with these kids before and after or anything like that. So, I don't want to paint a picture that's not true, but this is what people that are saying that have either these are former players saying this. In this case, a former player at West Virginia said this. So that spent 1 year with Neil Brown, his last year with Neil Brown. So really interesting.
That is very interesting. Perfect timing. Nick Danger says, one of the most promising receivers, Ollie Jennings, left because of Neil Brown. So that goes right along,
Right.
with what you're talking about
Well,
there. And
Tyke Smith as
I,
well.
yeah, and I think where there's smoke, there's fire. You don't have that many departures for a reason. And I think particularly it's really interesting, or I don't know, something that you don't see a lot is that West Virginia had 4 transfers from the same, position group this offseason when they lost, 4 defensive backs, right? Wasn't it 4? So, I mean, that's not something you see a lot. I don't know. So that
Yeah,
maybe
and
it's
then I
not even
mean,
just Neil Brown. Maybe it's some of the defensive staff as well.
well, and then if you go back to the season before that, you lose Tyke Smith. We lose the kid to Auburn. What was his name? Uh,
Jashawn Miller.
Deshaun Miller, who was really good for us. He and Tyke Smith are a part of, if not the greatest, one of the greatest pass covering teams in our history. So that 2021 defense. So, or is that 2020 defense? 2021, right?
2020, I think, was the one that was up finished ranked high was 2020,
That's
I
right.
believe.
And then 21 was also really good.
21 was pretty good too. Yes.
But yeah. So, but anyway, in Tyke Smith's case, he was asked to move out of that spear spot to just a traditional safety spot,
Right.
and that's why he left. So
Yeah, I think he thinks
sucks,
his
man.
future's probably at corner. Yeah. I know that's West Virginia's been dealt a tough hand, and that's one thing. I mean, this coaching staff has. I mean, they have been dealt a tough hand for the transfer portal and stuff, but that's just the name of the game now. And you can't help the fact that they wanted to maybe develop players in this, and they've lost a lot of the players they were trying to develop, and that's a tough break. But the sad truth is, you still got to find a way. I mean, no matter what Jimmys and Joes you got, especially after 3.5, 4 seasons, you really got to be able to find a way. Uh, Dana Smearman here in chat says, I've been watching WVU football for 40 years, and I don't remember a team coming out flat as often as in the Brown era. I mean, I'd agree. It seems to happen a lot, few times this year. And, you mentioned something about a former player, and that made me want to reference that accompanied with Dana's comment there in the chat. Made me want to reference this tweet that I did see post game from a former player. And that's Terrell Chestnut, who I know we all know is pretty active on Twitter. Got great football knowledge, was a great defensive back for the Mountaineers. And he's at T Chestnut on Twitter if you guys want to check this out for yourself. But he says, NB might be a really good coach, but just not for this program. Huge responsibility to coach at WVU and represent the state and the university. With that said, I think it's time to move on. Won't put any hashtags, but it's time. We trusted the climb, and the climb never happened. That is 472 likes already. Tweeted that just about an hour ago. So I think even when you're starting to hear it from people like that is when it's really starting to show you just kind of the state of the program right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard some people say like they wish Pat White, Steve Slayton. I think it was Brad from Voice of Motown saying he wished that Steve Slayton and Pat White and guys like that would get involved with what Terrell did. But some of these guys are also coaches, and so it's kind of hard to do that when you're in the profession yourself
Right.
to vie for somebody else's job to be taken. It's that takes bravery to do what Terrell Chestnut did, because I'm sure that even though Pat and Steve might feel that way, it's still a hard thing to come up publicly and say when especially when you're associated with this program, even if you don't know Neil Brown. So I'll be interested to see what Pat McAfee says about it this week. He's been pretty vocal about it lately.
Yeah, and he's a guy that can be, I think, a voice for West Virginia to help guide that ship. Really, I think when you get the outcry
Yeah.
not only from the fans and you start getting it from these celebrities and personalities that are important around the university and around the football program, that's when the athletic department really starts to listen, or will have to really.
Let me ask you a crazy question. If Pat said he wanted to get into coaching, would you take him as just a CEO and he hires all the staff? Would you take him right now?
Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's tough.
That's
But I don't
something
know
I
if
thought about earlier just by myself. I'm crazy. I thought,
oh,
man, what if Pat McAfee
I think
wanted to
it's a
be a
crazy.
coach and he could just hire whoever he wanted? We would win.
Hey,
I bet we would win.
well, the one thing I was gonna say is, I mean, he's the one thing you can say about Pat McAfee is everything he's tried to do, he's been successful at. I mean,
Everything he touches turns to gold. Yeah.
yep. So you never know. Oink
Yeah. I
Oink
bet
asked the
he's
question here. What's the buyout for Neil Brown? Was it 16 or is it 20 million?
16 million, and it would probably be paid in a lump sum of 3 seasons, according to a lawyer friend of mine and Guz's. So it's not something that would be paid all at once. It could be negotiated down. There's language in the contract that also protects the university, so it's not all geared towards Neil Brown. But some people think it can get down to as far down as maybe even 9 or 10 if they, because they obviously negotiate.
Right.
Um, it's hard to say. Neil Brown's a proud dude. I wouldn't expect him to give up any ground, though. Just knowing him
Yeah.
and how he's been, he won't even make a quarterback change. When Daggy was playing like he was playing,
He's not gonna make
now
one
it's
this
starting
year
to get like
either. It
that
doesn't look
JT.
like.
No, he'll go down with the JT ship. Yeah, he will.
Oh yeah,
I
100%.
think it's out of
I
fear
think.
too. I think it's based out of fear.
Oh, I think they feel like they owe it to him. Like he came here for what probably maybe his last season. Like, well, we got to let him finish the year at least. I think that's probably how
Yeah,
they feel.
yeah,
But I'm like, well, if you're doing that, you're going down with that as well. With the way he's been the past few games. Let's be honest.
yeah. It's been tough, man. Who was your player of the game?
Oh man, that's I don't know. I thought if I'm going defensively, Dante Stills. I mean, he had what 3 TFLs in the sack, so continuing to grow his lead as the all-time TFL leader. Offensively, I mean, I thought Justin Johnson looked pretty good for the few
He
carries
had
that
his
he had.
moments. He had his
Yeah,
moments.
I don't know. It's hard to say, like especially offensively when you have that bad a performance. It's hard to pick one out. But if I had to pick one,
I'll say
I guess I'd
Taj
have to go
Austin,
Dante.
since you
Yeah,
said.
Austin.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I'll say Taj Austin since you said Dante. Proud of him. He's had a tough season. He's been benched, and he's played really hard for us, even though he's been benched. On offense, I'll just give it to Zach Frazier because we never hear his name anyway, whether it's bad or good. Hardly, he's just a silent assassin, and I don't
Absolutely.
remember seeing too much pressure come up the middle today.
No,
So,
no, you're right, and I think that's
somebody
what
about
kind
to say
of
something about Jeff Grimes.
Yeah, I was about to say somebody was right here. Oink Oink said, I think Jeff Grimes would be a good hire if W wants a home run hire Rich Rod could always back. Dude had Arizona in an NY6 bowl. So I guess two guys. What's your opinion there? I know the Rich Rod thing's been going around lately. Like seems like that's really been sparked
Right.
up. What's your thoughts on that? And then Jeff Grimes, I think is a candidate, but I don't know if I want another coordinator experience.
Neither one of those hires would, I don't know. They wouldn't set me on fire. Uh, I've got, if you go check out Mountaineer Paul Talks Football, I've got a list of 5 coaches I think would be good, and I'm also going to be making just a regular list. List I did last week was a minorities only, but I'm going to be doing just a regular list. I'll tell you somebody who I don't know who I talked. I put it out on Twitter today and got a little bit of backlash because obviously he may not ever leave, but I thought Pat Fitzgerald is a really underrated guy that I think would do
He's a good
well at
coach.
Morgantown. Anytime you've won double-digit games at Northwestern and you have 5 winning seasons there, I don't care if you're 1-7 this year or not. He and David Shaw remind me of each other so much because I think they're both really good coaches that have, especially David Shaw, who's had 5 double-digit win seasons at Stanford. And those are 2 similar programs in that their academics are very strict. Northwestern's almost as tough to get into as Stanford. So you're recruiting from a very limited pool for both those programs. Really hard to get the kind of players that you could get at West Virginia, even. So, be interested to see if one of. It's very, very unlikely that one of those guys go to West Virginia. But man, when you're just trying to find guys to say would be good, those guys would be good.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. I think definitely go to Mountaineer Paul Talks Football on YouTube. Check out his video on that and look for his one coming in the future. Sub him up if you haven't already, by the way. But I'd agree with you. I think the one thing that I want from this hire, I haven't made a list yet or anything myself. I kind of want to wait till it's official before I do, I guess. But the one thing I think I'm going to look at is if I make what I may do, the way I've thought about it is I may have like a list of guys with Power 5 experience and then do another video with a list of guys that are assistants and then maybe a list of guys with WV ties and just kind of have the top 5 of each of those. But
Yeah.
personally, I really want West Virginia to hire someone with Power 5 experience as a head coach because as a school and as a program, we've never really done that. It's always been up and coming assistants or a group of 5, type hires. And so I think that at this point, especially when you just tried a coordinator 2 hires ago and that didn't really work out, fully the way you wanted, and you just tried a group of 5 guy and that didn't work out the way you wanted. I think now you got to go try and get a guy with Power 5 experience. So I like the names you named. A name that I've heard that I like a lot. I don't know if West Virginia would have a shot at him. I don't know if he wants to get back into coaching, but that would be Dan Mullen. That's kind of guy that's kind of popped up for me lately that I've liked to hear.
Dan Mullen, huh? Yeah, he's certainly better than what we have.
Yeah,
um,
that's
better than what we have.
Yeah, that's the main thing right now. Is at this point, I think anything you're not going to be mad no matter what. Everybody's going to have their favorites, but it's almost to the point where it's just like we all want to see a change overall, and we'll ride with whatever. But it's going to be interesting and fun to speculate and figure that out as it comes along as to what way it's going to go.
The only thing I would say against Mullen is I don't think he's coached a team during the transfer portal era yet, has he? He's been out of coaching for like 1 or 2 years, right?
Yeah, I was going to say Florida. It might have been like his last year at Florida was like when it first kicked up. Maybe I think I can't remember. If
So
not, then he missed it by a year, one of the two. But no,
I
he hasn't
would,
been in it a lot.
I would want a coach that has experience with that. Not all coaches have had experiences with the portal, but not like it is now.
Right.
And I feel like it's going to take time for all coaches, to get the feel of exactly how do these players are going to leave. Every school's going to have 10 to 20 players leave every year, and you're going to have to bring in those same 10 to 20, whether it's a mixture of junior college, Division II, Division I, FCS, Power 5, however you do it. But there are going to be coaches eventually here in a few years, once we're able to look at the numbers, that you can say have a maybe a niche in that area or something like that. They're really good in that area. And I would like to be ahead of the game and maybe just land on a hire that's just good at that. because I think that's going to be a really important part of football going forward, maybe even more important than traditional recruiting, and I don't see why you couldn't say that it isn't. You can't develop players like you used to anymore. And so some people's school of thought is, okay, so you go out and get kids that have already transferred once that have a lot of upside, and maybe that's the way to go. That way they
Yeah,
can't transfer again, and you've got them for 3 years. That's one
yeah,
school of thought. The other is to just get a bunch of one and dones and bring them in every year. A lot of different ways you can go about it, and it's going to shake out to where somebody's doing that really good. Who is it? That's who I want.
yeah. And West Virginia needs it. Being typically in the past, being a developmental football program that's had success. Once every 4 years when they've got some guys that they've coached up. That's the formula that Neyland used, and even Rich Rod to an extent. Of course, he had lightning in a bottle with Slayton and White, but I think now with West Virginia, you need to be able to make the transfer portal a weapon for you to where you can have success with it. And you need a guy that's going to be able to do that. And like you said, I think both of those schools of thought are great. Like I said, because if somebody transfers once, they can't transfer again without having to sit out. They're not going to want to do that. So definitely, I think that's an underlying thing that I hadn't thought about in regards to the hire. So that's a great point, is their experience and their ability to deal with the transfer portal. I see some people talking about Tom Herman in the chat. What are your thoughts on Tom Herman?
Well, apparently the word on Tom Herman's he's a bit of an ass, but I mean, I don't care about that. So is
Right.
Bill Belichick, so is Bob Huggins a lot of the time. So, um, even though it's probably a little overblown, but, so I don't really care. Tom Herman on the field, what he did at Houston was really good. And then what he did at Texas was still pretty good. They went to a Big 12 championship with him. Uh, you
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, he's one of his former quarterbacks is a starter in the league as of right now for the Colts. Um, so he's been shown to be able to develop players over time. He's obviously got an eye for talent. When you think about, um, who's that player that plays for the Bills that played for Houston? What's his name on the defensive line?
Oh, uh, Oliver, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Oliver, yeah. I can't think of the
yeah.
first name, but
Ed Oliver.
yeah, that's it.
Um, really, and they had player after player like that come through Houston. And at a school like Houston, how they were then, they were having to pick from the leftovers of all the Texas schools, really, so, and they were still able to land an Ed Oliver. So it shows that he's got an eye for talent. At a place like West Virginia, that's important because we're not always going to get, Traylon Ray signings don't happen every day. Rodney Gallagher signings don't happen every day. Justin Benton's don't happen every day. Jeremiah Trotter Jr.'s don't happen every day. James Hurd Jr.'s don't happen every day. Neil Brown got every freaking one of them.
True.
And those are all 4-star guys on one of the 3 major websites. So whether it be On3, 247 Sports, or Rivals, they're 4 stars on one of those sites, and some of them all 3. Blows me away. Blows me away that he's able to do that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And like I said, that just kind of speaks to the disconnect we've talked about, like doing everything right, but for some reason it not adding up to wins, which I don't understand. As far as Tom Herman goes, I think I kind of agree, like what you said, like probably better than what we have. But personally, I think it's just more of a personal thing for me. I've just never liked the guy, and I think it goes like what you said about him, personality wise. So I wouldn't like it when we made the hire, but if we started winning, of course I would grow to like it, and I'd be always behind the Mountaineers and give it a chance. But also, I worry about him being a Texas guy. He's been at Houston. He's been at Texas. When Dana first came, he tried to recruit Texas, and it didn't work out for us. So if he came and tried to recruit Texas for us, I don't know if it would be any different. But that's the one
Doesn't
thing
he
that would
have
go
Ohio
against it
State
for me.
ties, though?
Yeah, I think he was wasn't he defensive coordinator there or something?
Offensive. He's an offensive guy, I'm pretty sure.
Offensive coordinator. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You're right about that. Yeah, I think he was offensive coordinator there at the time. Then I know I remember being on the staff.
You know what blows me
So
away, man? You look at the coaches that have really showed out this year. A guy like Josh Heupel at Tennessee or Luke Fickell last year. These are both guys that we could have had.
yep.
I mean, obviously Luke Fickell said no to us. He did. from what I've been told. But is that because it was a financial deal? If he was really our guy and we threw it all at him, could we have had him? I don't know. But man, can you imagine? And I hate to play this game, and I know maybe a lot of you don't want to play it, but can you imagine what a Josh Heupel would look like right now
Oh,
at West Virginia? Just think about the events. Would Hendon Hooker have transferred to Josh Heupel at West Virginia instead of Tennessee? Like, it's just so much to think about.
yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah, you never know.
you never know, and it's just makes me mad that we landed on Neil Brown. Um, yeah,
Well, when you think
makes me
about
mad.
that with those what ifs, look at Kansas State. Their final two were Chris Kleiman and Neil Brown.
Neil
What if they
Brown,
hire
Chris
Neil Brown
Kleiman.
and West Virginia ends up hiring Chris Kleiman? Kansas State, competing for the conference, hired in the same year. 4 years later, West Virginia last place. Kansas State competing for a conference title. That could have been flipped around as well.
Yeah, and while we wouldn't have the same players because the geography is just so much different, we would have some of the same players, I would imagine. At
Right.
some point there would be crossover, um, but there's talent out this way just like there is that way. So I don't think it would matter. It's all about when you get like Kleiman's a great example. He recruits players that fit his system. They don't have to be uber talented as long as they fit the system. It's all like what Belichick's been doing for since 2000. In New England, even though it's fallen off a little bit here the last couple of years. Once you develop a system, it's more about the system than it is the player. And you just find players that on the high end or the low end fit that system. And that's how it works. Wish I knew how to do it, but I don't.
Yeah, I
I
know.
just know how to
I
talk
was about
about
to say. Yeah, I was about to say, me too. All I can do is speculate and stuff. If I wish I had the answers too, but unfortunately
Yeah.
we don't. We can just speculate on what we think the answers may be and hope that West Virginia finds them. That's all we can do. But Old Golden Blue Show here in the chat brings up one of my personal favorite candidates, especially talking Group of Five candidates. Which, like I said, I hope West Virginia goes with the guy with Power Five experience if they do move on from Neil Brown. But Jamie Chadwell, Coastal Carolina, Old Golden Blue Show says, I don't know if Chadwell is the answer, but he looked great against Marshall. Very good in-game adjustments. I know Old Golden Blue Show attended the game. He was giving me some updates about the offense and stuff. And I really do like that unique system that Chadwell runs. And I think a unique system is one way you have success at West Virginia.
Right. Similar to what it would be more similar to what Rich Rod runs than what we run
Right.
here now, right?
Yep.
But here's what I'll say about Chadwell, and this is my opinion. So the difference between Neil Brown at Troy, or even Sumrall that's at Troy now, or maybe Drinkowitz who's at Missouri now that was at App State. These are all programs that are traditionally just good at the Group of Five level. And so the coaches don't always, it seems like no matter who comes in and out of these programs, they're always pretty good. That's not the case at Coastal Carolina. Chadwell
Good
built
point.
that program into what it is. He did, and so that catches my eye a little bit because Coastal Carolina is not a traditionally great Group of Five program, and even FCS program before that. So they're a program that you'd be really hard to win at, even though it's in that Myrtle Beach area. It's such a small spot. I was just shocked that he took that play, especially they were rocking these last couple of years. I think he's going to be a really good hire, and I think he has the potential to be a Luke Fickle type hire for somebody. The problem is just the unknown part of it. I have a really good feeling that he's going to be a very good coach for somebody, but we haven't seen it at the Power Five level yet, and that's the only thing that scares me about it.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I'm scared to take another gamble when you just took a gamble on what you thought was a sure thing, a foolproof hire, and it went that way. So it's kind of hard to take a gamble on another Group of Five guy. But I agree with you. He definitely has built that program. I don't remember ever hearing about Coastal Carolina prior to him being there, personally. So I'd agree with that. And like I said, the unique system, I really do like that as well. So as bad as I'd be scared of the gamble, I don't think it would be a bad move. Also, I think like we said earlier, better than what you're doing now probably. So any change is a good change at this point.
As we West Virginia fans may hate to admit, it might be one of the more attainable hires for us.
Yep.
Um,
That's one thing we
you
got to think
know,
about, because if we're paying that buyout, we may not be able to, flex and spend as much as we'd like to on the next coach.
yeah, I mean, because if it was up to me, there's no second guessing it. Deion Sanders is the guy. If you can get any coach you want, it's Deion. Would he come to West Virginia and be the first black coach in our history? I mean, because that's probably what you'd have to sell him on. Hey,
Yeah.
listen, in a state that's traditionally looked upon as racist. I'm not saying that it is or isn't, but it's from the outside looking in. Trust me, I live in Ohio now. It's looked upon as that.
Mhm.
You could be the first black coach in its history. But I'm wasting my breath because the likelihood he's going to want probably 10 to 11 million dollars wherever he
Oh, yeah.
goes next. Um, you think about what he's been able to do. Are you kidding me? He has more five-star players on the roster than we do. you know,
Sure.
he was able to flip uh, Travis Hunter, who not only grads that he was the number one player in the country, but
Mhm.
not only that, he's one of the highest graded number one overall players ever too. He's not just a number one player like from year to year to year. He also grades out as a high end like Andrew Luck for his position. So like he's almost for sure going to be a top 5 pick. You can just tell. So wild, man. So I mean, he's able
That's
to do that
impressive.
there. What could he do at West Virginia or wherever else he goes next is going to be a top 5 recruiting school. You can book it.
Oh, guaranteed.
There's no doubt about
Guaranteed.
it.
Guaranteed. I think that he's going to be hot commodity is the one, like you said, that's probably your dream candidate. But like I said, I think that's everyone's dream candidate at this point that's looking to make
Oh
a hire
yeah.
this offseason, probably.
If he walks into your living room and that smile, Coach Prime, and that the charisma, nobody's saying no to that. And he
Nope.
can sell you on a dream. And he CEOs it too, man. He doesn't call plays. He just hires the best, and he'll admit that.
G
Wild,
Smyrna
man.
says Luke Fickle, it was a religious thing. That's what I'd always heard too, that they want, Luke Fickle was, kind of the top candidate. He had the relationship with Gordon Gee, but when it came down to him and Neil Brown for West Virginia's hire. But Luke Fickle, what I'd heard, and apparently what G Smyrna had heard as well, was that he's Catholic and his family's Catholic, and I don't think there's any Catholic schools in the area near Morgantown, and that's one of the main issues of why he turned down West Virginia.
Well, then we should have built one.
Yeah, I'd agree. Make it happen, right?
He should have built one. Listen, if I was in charge, that's what I would have tried to make happen. But y'all didn't hire me, man. I tried to tell you guys.
Yeah, that's what I said. If you build it, they will come, right?
Yeah, yeah. So who is your number one guy that's attainable? Do you think? Do you have one?
um, I still like Hugh Freeze. I know he got the extension, but I don't think
You
that's
think he's
ruled out.
attainable?
I think that it's still a chance. I mean, you look at who wasn't it Lane Kiffin signed a big extension at FAU, then still left for Ole Miss in the same
Yeah,
year.
same deal. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not ruled out because he got the extension. I think it's less likely now, but he's definitely up there for me. Um, like I said, I haven't looked at it enough to give a like educated answer, I guess. But just like top of my head, I think him. I think Dan Mullen. Um, I don't know. I might take a gamble on a Dave Clawson. It's a name I've heard tossed up, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't remember Wake Forest really being good prior to him either. Too often. So
No, wait, listen. Similar to Northwestern, Wake Forest is a really, really hard place to win at. Not, and they're traditionally a basketball school as well. So that's another thing you're contending with.
yeah.
But I mean, the thing I guess you could do is possibly bring some recruits to like a basketball game there.
That's true. That's true. That's definitely a good environment.
Uh,
Traditionally, they are a bit of a power.
what about a Gus Malzahn?
I wouldn't be mad about that. I mean,
Would that be a
that's a
lateral
guy that
move
I
now?
wanted. I said I don't know if, especially with him coming to the Big 12, I don't know if he would make that jump. You'd probably have to entice him with
At this
a little
point,
bit
we're two
extra money for
programs going in
sure.
two totally different directions, too, aren't we?
Yep, that's
I
true.
mean, we're
That's
the
true.
we're the bigger program with the bigger history, no doubt. I mean, if you look at UCF's history compared to ours, it's not close. You know,
Right.
they've got undefeated seasons, so do we. Um, I mean, so, but I mean, he's already in Florida, and now it's going to be a Power Five school. Probably that's a school that scares me going down the road, looking down the road.
Oh yeah,
Sleeping giant
definitely.
at UCF. So, I mean, maybe I'm chasing dreams again, thinking Malzahn would leave UCF to come to West Virginia. But
Hey, stranger things have happened, but I definitely wouldn't be. That's a guy that I remember even when the news broke that they were going to move on from, Coach Bill
I
Stewart,
couldn't
rest in
believe it.
peace. I was a guy that I wanted. I wanted us to go after Malzahn real bad. I remember late that season him being a name that was brought up, and because I wanted West Virginia to have an explosive offense, we were dealing with the Jeff Mullen offense, and then of course we hired Dana Holgerson, who I had not really known too much about prior to that. But then once I researched that, I was
Yeah,
like, oh, he's a good offensive mind. I'm cool with that. But Malzahn was definitely a guy that I wanted back then, even. So if we end up with him now, I'd be cool with it.
and he's got the UFC Knights playing really well.
He does. He does.
I think they're
They're
7-2
power right
now after
now.
today. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, they've got a cool
And
stadium. I like their stadium.
I
I'm
think he has
looking forward
another
to going
offense
there.
that's he has another offense that's kind of unique as well, and he's always been really good at
Yeah,
running the football, which is West Virginia has traditionally had success with when they're good at running the football. So uh,
I like watching him on the sidelines during
uh
between plays. He's doing that thing where he's got his hands going like
oh yeah,
this.
he's roll with
Go,
it,
go,
roll
go,
with
go, go.
it. Yeah,
Wanting him to
up tempo
move.
rolling. They get it up
Yeah,
tempo rolling. He gets into it. I'm with you. I like it as well. Having said that, who knows what's going to happen? It could be interesting next few days for Mountaineer Nation. It's certainly going to be an interesting next 2 to 3 weeks after the abysmal performance we saw today. The Mountaineers fall to Iowa State 31-14. Mountaineers officially last place in the Big 12 Conference. Unfortunately, 3-6 on the season, 1-5 in conference play. We're going to cover it, no matter what moving forward. We'll be here post game on the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel for the remaining 3 games of the season, of course. But having said that, Mountaineer Paul, what do you got coming up on your end? Anything you want to plug on your channel? You can hand out your social media handles. Just let them know where they can find you outside of here on the Voice of College Football channel.
yeah. At Paul Mountaineer on Twitter. I'm pretty vocal on there. I think I've chased some people off here lately. I get emotional, during the games, but
Oh yeah,
don't take me personal. I just I love this university and the state just like you guys. Born and raised in West Virginia. I got them tattooed right here on my chest, just like a lot of
love
you
it.
guys probably do. So I love the Mountaineers, and you can find me at Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. Um, I make videos about West Virginia football. I'm going to be rebranding that going into basketball season, and actually, Kuz and I have been talking about partnering up and doing a joint thing on the basketball, but decision hasn't been made quite yet. So we're still trying to work out some of the details on that, and we're still not sure.
Nice.
We might make it a completely other channel on that. I know that's kind of off topic from what you asked me to do, man. But
No, you're good.
so coming up on Mountaineer Paul Talks Football, actually starting next week, I'm starting a new project, but it is football related. So if a lot of you guys are interested in it, it's going to be women in the sport of football, basketball, that cover the sport from a journalism type perspective. Also in the debate arena. I have 2 ESPN employees lined up to do this. We're going to be talking about their journey from when they were just hoping they could be talking about sports or maybe playing sports to where they are now as journalists working for ESPN. I've also got a lady that's named at the Coach Melissa on Twitter. She is a Texas Christian personality. So she's going to be coming on the show and she's going to be talking about her journey. And we're just going to, be kind of uplifting women, man, because any man that's ever had a good woman by his side knows what that's all about. And there's some good women on the sports side of this thing, too, that don't get a whole lot of shine. So that's what would be the goal of the show is to talk about women that are in this field and do what we do, except on a more national level. And it's going to be fun.
Awesome. I think that's great, man. That's going to be really good. Y'all be on the lookout for that. That's some awesome stuff there coming from Mountaineer Paul Talks Football here on YouTube. Plenty of great West Virginia content, great interviews, and like you said, there's some great content coming up promoting women, in journalism and specifically, sports journalism. So that's going to be awesome, and we'll look forward to that. As far as me, you can find me on YouTube here at Country Roads Webcast. We cover West Virginia sports, a little bit of Big 12, mainly just West Virginia. football right now. We just kicked up the basketball side of our coverage as well. That's going to be, getting heavy and with both sports going on. So we'll have basketball coverage on the channel, football coverage on the channel. We do a long form podcast that you can watch video version of on our YouTube, and then the audio version on any podcast platform you like there. Just search Country Roads Webcast, preview and review of every Mountaineer football game, and then going to do a podcast episode a week for basketball. So that'll be on the podcast side. Video wise, like I said, post game streams, hopefully for basketball as well. You can find us here, post game for football games on the Voice of College Football channel. And then, like I said, Country Roads Webcast on YouTube. That's us. Sub up Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. And then most importantly here on the channel, sub up the West Virginia channel here at the Voice of College Football. We're trying to continue to grow that and really grow it throughout Mountaineer Nation. But any final thoughts, anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on, Mountaineer Paul, before we get ready to wrap up this post-game show for this Iowa State game?
Fire Neil Brown.
That's a heck of a way to end it, and we'll see how it plays out moving forward in the coming days. I would agree with you there, as I think a lot of Mountaineer Nation would at this point, and we'll see if that wish is granted and how the final 3 games of the season play out. No matter what, there will be plenty of West Virginia coverage coming from Mountaineer Paul, coming from myself at the Country Roads Webcast, and of course here at the Voice of College Football, and specifically on the West Virginia channel here at the Voice of College Football. We'll be back next week following the Oklahoma game again to talk about it with you guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Like the video if you're hearing here live, or if you're watching it on the playback, that'll really help. And sub us up if you haven't already here at the West Virginia channel. That being said, for Mountaineer Paul, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
Mountaineers.